Hey everyone, what's the crack? Lawrence here with the brand new Neo X hub. This could be the round steering wheel that I've always wanted from Simagic. Let's find out. Okay, I've got a couple of boxes here. Let's explain what they are. This is a Maglink, exactly like what we saw with the GT Neo. So we're not going to concentrate too heavily on that. We will be installing it. We've got the clutch paddle and shifter paddle add-on kit. Interesting that this is a separate kit to this. So that is interesting. Usually that's part of the hub. So I wonder why they've done that separately. Then I've got a round steering wheel, the 330R, but you've got different variations of steering wheel as well. I went for the round one, and we've got the Neo X hub itself. Now, they've been teasing these on social media for the last couple of weeks. I'm excited to see this. It looks quite colorful on the pictures, but I think without the LEDs lit up, it's going to look a lot less colorful and maybe a lot more subtle. So I'm excited about seeing that as well. So let's kick it off with the hub. We've got the usual Formula Drift, iRacing, a lot of brand cooperation going on here. I think it's something that Simagic has very rightly invested heavily in because it makes them a lot more approachable, relatable, a lot more household than if they were just Simagic. Because in the early days, people were always saying, oh, Simagic, it's just a Chinese brand or whatever. I don't hear that anymore, which is great. I think that's partly because people see it when they load up iRacing, people see it in Formula Drift. It's a very kind of a popular brand now. I mean, that's obviously not just due to marketing, that's due to the fact that the products are really good as well. So that has helped. So let's see. Okay, looks very familiar. We've got a little sticker sheet in here. Is it tooling in here? Okay, we've got little bits of tooling inside that bag as well. So it's all in the one bag. Let's have a quick look at those. So in there we've got all the bolts for bolting the steering wheel to the hub. Interesting that they're all in the one bag. Makes sense, but usually they're all separate. There's a little quick guide on some nice little paper here. The quick guide. These quick guides from Simagic are super well laid out these days. And to be honest, the products are so intuitive these days, you don't actually even need these quick guides anymore. I didn't say that, but you don't really need them. Oh, these are cool. Some little die cut stickers. They're quite nice. So they're quite nice. I can see people attaching them to their rigs and to their wheelbases and stuff. That's pretty cool. All right, this is what we really want to see. So there is the Neo X hub. It's got the same encoders as the... Let's grab it out of the box. It's got the same encoders as the GT Neo. I'll grab the GT Neo in just a moment. The buttons from memory are the same. We've got the same aluminium thumb encoders as well. Slight markings on surface are normal and indicative of factory testing. Okay, interesting. Interesting. I don't see any marks on here though, but it's interesting that they say that about factory testing. That's okay. We've got an LED strip up here as well. And then, okay, so you can, that's interesting. Okay, so maybe just to keep costs down, because some people are drifters, for example, who use H pattern or a manual sequential. They don't necessarily need the paddles. So to keep the costs down, they've just left the paddles off, I would assume. We've got slight kind of a, and again, it's going to be hard to see on the video, but we've got little ridging on these buttons and on the buttons here as well. So that's interesting. And we've got two 7-way hats, and they're proper 7-way hats like the GT Neo, and similar to the GT Neo, they are quite smooth. So maybe just a little bit hard to grip for some people. And we have LEDs all around this rotary encoder as well. So that's cool, but you can see straight away that's way less colorful than it is on the images. So you can customize all that coloring to your own liking. You don't have any click down on these thumb encoders. What else? No click down on the front rotaries. That's all fine. And this is a like composite material. It's not actual carbon fiber. Again, not an issue for me as I nearly drop it. It's got little plate, a blanking plate, I guess, for just the center and to hide or to house those bolts. Remember when was it Moza had the horn button on their Moza RS wheel? It would be really cool if these were a horn button. Obviously, that's far more complicated and something that most people will not use at all. Little USB-A to USB-C cable here. The next thing that we need is our round steering wheel. So let's grab that. Again, nicely presented box. Oh, I just dropped my USB cable down behind the unit. And here we go. Nothing else in the box. Interesting use of this kind of bubble wrapping material here. Gonna need my blade to get this out. I don't know what this is. Okay, this is just the center plate. So I'd say this one is just, if you're using a generic steering wheel, quite clever. You can still put this on there. People will see it as a Simagic logo on the middle of, even if it's a Momo wheel or something like that. For this one in particular, you can get the really nice Simagic branded little kind of 3-prong version. This steering wheel feels very, very familiar. It's got little indenting on the back here, which I do think is nice. It is one of the nicer steering wheels from all the different brands, but this is very similar from memory to what I remember from the GT1. The GT1 steering wheel from Simagic was great at the time, but I mean, that's 5 years ago now. The steering wheel itself, the rim is fine. The button box just needed some work. So I'm hoping that this will supersede it. I do prefer the buttons on the GT1. I've said that before. Everything else here is a lot better. So including even the materials, it's all a lot better. It's higher quality. So let's get that installed. We've got some bolts as well here. We've got some long bolts. And we can see here that this is a bolt kit for these steering wheels. Now we also have the paddle shifter kit, which is another important bit of kit for me anyway. I want those paddle shifters. I want those clutch paddles. Again, another great little installation guide that usually I don't even pay any attention to because the products are just intuitive these days. And I quite like that. Okay, that's nicely presented. Look at that. This is way more complex than I expected. Okay, so this is, I'm expecting another layer in here. So we've got a load of different kind of shifter paddles and stuff. Wow, they're actually, that's interesting. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. And then in here we've got the little casings themselves that we'll be attaching onto the back, and then we'll be attaching those little paddles we just saw onto these guys. So that is interesting. Some hardware here. So this looks a little bit, there's a little bit of DIY to this, but a lot of customizability. And I would guess that we're going to have, there's going to be some redundancy here. These are clutch paddles, and what these could be clutch paddles. I guess any of them could be anything really. So if you wanted to use them for brake and throttle, for example, those clutch paddles, you can. This is quite interesting that they've opted for this level of customization. I assumed in my own mind that they were just going to be you know, a shifter paddle and a clutch paddle, and that everything was pre-installed on this, and that we were going to, yeah, just be able to plug that in. So a little bit more complicated, fun in a lot of ways, maybe a bit complex for some, I don't know. I've never actually had to build a clutch paddle and shifter paddle before like this, so that is interesting. We've got some little bits here as well. They're probably just little extensions. So good bit of assembly to do. The last bit is that Maglink cable. For those of you who don't know what the Maglink is, This Maglink allows you to use this on any wheelbase. So yes, this is a Simagic product. So is the GT Neo. You're not limited to Simagic, which is very, very nice. I love the way that they're doing that. I love the way they're encouraging the use of other ecosystems. It kind of, in my opinion, just solidifies their brand, and people, when they do go to upgrade, they're going to consider Simagic, because like, I already have the steering wheel, I may as well just upgrade. This is a cracking piece of kit. So good. Little magnetic connector. It's really, really good. This also allows you to install third-party quick releases onto it. Let's crack it open there quickly. So what we'll end up doing is taking this quick release off and putting I have an Asetek Invicta on my rig at the moment. We're going to be taking this off, and we're going to be putting the Asetek Invicta quick release on there. Then we've got this USB extension cable. Again, this was just so handy while I was testing. I still have it installed on my rig, so I'm just going to be using the one that I already have on my rig. It's nice to have a little spare USB port handy on your rig, even if you're just plugging in like a memory stick or something like that. Very, very handy. This is our magnetic cable, and that's really, it's just a lovely bit of kit. I know I've said it a load of times. This replaces this part, so instead of it looking like this, you're going to have a little kind of a dock at the bottom here, and that dock very simply allows you to attach a USB cable like that, and that USB cable plugs into your PC. Super, super simple, and it's got a really nice strong magnet. You can see there the little bit of surgery that you have to do to replace this with that. Very, very simple. Couple of bolts, plug this in, done. That's all the boxes. I have a good bit of assembly to do. Let's do a time lapse. that was a lot more work than I would have liked. I guess at this price point, you can't really argue, and I love the fact that people have the option to not have clutch paddles. The main work, if you want to call it that, it's only a couple of bolts. Don't pay too much attention to me, but it is more work and it's quite finicky compared to what I wanted, or what I would normally like, I guess. I've gone for these shift paddles because I quite like the shape of them. There's no corresponding clutch paddle for that, so I've just gone with the carbon. The carbon, there's no adjustability here, but if you use this little bit, you can. If I was using this on its own without the little extension, you see there's just the tiniest little extension on it. You see it there. I've extended it ever so slightly just to bring it out, and it makes a little bit more sense. They feel lovely, even though they're an aluminium. They feel fantastic. Now the options, I spent a little bit of time deliberating over the options. You can go with a very traditional GT style shifter like that. There's also this one. Now this one is very, I don't know, very fast and furious or something. I don't know, but it's actually kind of I think it might be a very nice shape to use. So I'll be testing that one as well. You can see the size difference of that compared to this one. You wouldn't need the little extension at all. But as this is a round wheel, and I'm going to be using this for drifting and rally and stuff, smaller shifters actually suits me a little bit better. Those shifters feel nice. They're less clicky than the ones on the GT Neo, and the clutch paddles feel very, very similar. Interesting that they're even less clicky than the GT Neo, which is not a particularly clicky shifter when compared especially to some of the older Simagic steering wheels. You can see the stickers, I've applied them a little bit wonky. They're not perfectly rotated the exact way that I want. The issue that I had with the GT Neo with the stickers not being centered correctly, that has been corrected. And you can see on the sticker sheet here, they're all nicely centered. I haven't seen any that are out of center. I like a pretty generic setup because I could be using this for anything from touring cars to rally cars to drift cars. So I just tend to go for A, B, C, D. I do always have my my microphone up here, so that's one that I kind of consistently have there, especially my push to talk when I'm on Discord or whatever. When you are holding this steering wheel, that button is a little bit far away. It's just the size of the button plate. It's the way that it is. That also means though, the positive side of that is you've got loads of space for your thumbs and your hands. So this button plate is not going to get in the way. But you can't just easily go and adjust something. You do need to lift off the wheel. This being a 330mm steering wheel, that's completely forgivable. I wouldn't even expect that. And it makes those button plates quite bulky and quite big if you do accommodate for that. Obviously, it would be lovely to have your 7-way hats here and a few buttons and all that, but then you've no space for your thumbs and it just gets messy very, very quickly. I've got the Asetek Invicta quick release on here. This is, it looks great like this, but I can't mount it internally. We saw that when I was reviewing the GT Neo. There was no way for me to do that internally, not easily anyway. So I am going to have to wrap this cable, and I'll just show how that goes. This cable will plug in here for the USB functionality, and it will go all the way around like this, and then I'll have to click it on like that. So you get a lot of ugly wiring, ugly cables at the back. That's a pity, but it's not the end of the world either. We see it shares lots with the Neo range. The general look, these two, they look very much like they match. These encoders, exactly the same. Buttons, exactly the same. Thumb encoders, also exactly the same. And our 7-way hats, also exactly the same. We don't have a front-facing Simagic badge like here. We've got the kind of little bit more old school central badge on there. And the steering wheel, absolutely no faults with the steering wheel, other than potentially just a little bit of a join that you can see here on both these grips. If you do a lot of use there, that might wear over time. I don't know. That's something that we'll have to see longer term. I do want to just put the GT Neo away a sec, and I want to compare to my current, I guess, favorite Simagic configuration. Now, this is not USB compatible, so this is not compatible on third parties, but this is the GT Pro button box. So this has, you know, clutch paddles, shifters that are relatively similar to what we have on here. I don't see any major difference between these. The thumb encoders also quite similar, and the buttons not too dissimilar. We've got big 7-way hats, chunky 7-way hats on here, and we've got just slightly more lighting. We've also got backlit buttons, but these are, to be honest, nicer backlighting. We've got our LED gauge on there as well. This to date has been my favorite. We have 4 thumb encoders here. You don't have those on here, but we can see with those older steering wheels that we don't get those little joins that you get on this one. So that is a little bit of a pity to see. You know, they're not expensive steering wheels. You can buy one of these generically on eBay for very, very cheap, and they don't have those joints. So that's just something to be aware of. There are quite a few, you know, parts where this stitching in its own right, not really a problem. But yeah, these little joins where it's just glue that's been used, I'm not too sure how they'll hold up in the long run. There's also, of course, our little Simagic GTS steering wheel, which is also a great option. No shift paddles. This one is a good bit smaller though, so if you compare it there, it's a lot smaller. This is only a 300mm steering wheel, but if 300mm is enough, like if you're on an Alpha Mini, you want to do rally, drifting and stuff, you don't necessarily need clutch paddles. This is still a great option. This is a lovely light rim. This one is a lot heavier. So on the Alpha Mini, this performs brilliantly. Now, the Alpha Mini is, luckily, it has lots of power, so it can easily rotate that. This one does have nicer encoders, and they do click down. It has nice 7-way hats as well. It has no thumb rotaries. What the future of these is in this range, because we've got the Neo range, we've also got the Zeus range coming up. I don't know if these are going to be discontinued or what, but hopefully they'll still be supported. And the same with the GT Pro button box. I can't imagine them discontinuing that. Maybe they will. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I can't even speculate. You guys can speculate in the comments. I don't know what the future of that is. This is a super positive step though. This is a fantastic option. But I think, you know, don't write off these others. They have a lot of good round steering wheel options. Now you'll notice I didn't compare it to the GT1. The GT1 is not relevant anymore, in my opinion. It doesn't have a 7-way hat. It has limited functionality. The rotary encoders are pretty bad. It's not got clutch paddles, and overall it's just very limited in functionality compared to these options, which are all a lot better. Now the only thing that's left for me to do is to take this for a quick drive on the simulator. See you in the rig. So here we are in the rig, and I've got the Asetek QR hooked up, so this should seamlessly, as soon as I hook this up, should be a fairly native experience. So that's fairly recognizable. A nice little startup sequence there. The colors very vibrant, really shows off the colors that you can get on it. Steering wheel feels good. I'm a little bit, I don't know. It's just a visual thing mainly, because I don't think you notice those little joins, but I didn't have it with other steering wheels, and I just have some concerns about this part in particular. These are fine. You see these joins everywhere. I would prefer no joins and maybe just the one up here. The quality does feel pretty decent though, so there's nothing to be worried about there. I'm getting a slight little bit of some flex here, and that is a little worrying. Have I just not... I think I might not have tightened something correctly. but I'm getting a slight bit of flex. Let me just tighten that up a sec. So I've taken the whole thing apart and I still have that flex. So if we look at it, you might see a tiny bit of flex on the video from the hub itself, but that's no, there's little or nothing from the button plate itself. It's the steering wheel. It seems like there's just ever so the slightest gap maybe in behind there, or else this material is just pretty soft. Now, this for me is not an issue, right? This is negligible flex, even though that's going to look horrendous on the video. It's really going to look bad. That is not terrible flex. As in, the way that you'll be using the steering wheel, you shouldn't be pushing against it. You shouldn't be pulling off it. And I don't think you're going to lose anything by that. I'm just calling it out. The only reason I'm calling it out is because if I don't, someone is going to say in the future, oh, it flexes like mad, and you never called it out on your video. Sim racers are strangely obsessed with flex. This flex, even though I prefer not to see it, it's not an issue. And especially at this price point, guys, because this button plate is $200. The shifter module, which I'll chat about in a sec, is $55, including the shifter paddles. Now that is absolutely crazy. Crazy cheap. So after your sales taxes and all that stuff, you're still looking sub $300 for something like this, which is pretty amazing. I've gone for the little aluminium shifters, or little alloy shifters. I think they're aluminium, and the carbon fiber paddles. The carbon fiber shifters probably look better, but I wanted to try these aluminium ones because they have a nice little texture on the back that looks kind of interesting. And you've got so many different options. Like for that $55, you get a hell of a lot, and you can really kind of do a little bit of customization. Did I enjoy putting that all together? No, it took a lot of time. It took it's not a huge amount of time, but it took quite a bit of time. The alloy clutch paddle shifters, the little clutch paddle equivalent of this little piece, that couldn't thread. The bolt couldn't fit through that. The bolt was trying to thread it, and as a result, because the shifter paddle mechanism itself is threaded and the paddle is trying to be threaded, it's impossible to get that on straight. So as far as I'm concerned, this is the only usable piece for the clutch paddles, is the carbon fiber. Because I went for this aluminium one, I would have preferred to have gone for the aluminium clutch paddle as well, but that was just too much effort. Needs to be drilled out slightly. I mean, it's not a huge amount of effort, but I'm reviewing a product here. I'm not doing a DIY show. That quality should have been better. I think that maybe the tolerance before the powder coating or the painting was not enough. So I think the paint is causing that, because when you do screw into it, it begins to thread that hole. But as a result, because both things are threaded, you either need to be perfect with that bolt and get it in through both of them, or else gaps are gonna form, and it just wasn't worth the effort for me. So I went for the carbon shifters. Carbon probably looks better, but because I was going for the alloy, I wanted the alloy as well. That's just my own personal preference. Some people are not huge into carbon, so I love that they've given that option. So interestingly, when I go to add a device here, we've got Neo X here already. I always feel that this screen on Simhub tends to give away some industry secrets, because at the time of filming, nobody really knows about this thing, but you might be able to find some stuff out by just adding this. Oh, here we go. Look, straight away, we've got stuff happening. Let's go into it. So that's the profile. If I change it to red, so I can customize this here. I don't have a Daniel Newman profile for this yet. We'll have to go with the default, but we might not get some of the fanciness like your pit limiter, button flashing, and all that kind of stuff. Let's just go with what we have right now. I'm going to give the steering wheel a go, see how ergonomic it is. Already, it feels very good. Like, it feels better than the GT1. The steering wheel rim feels nicer. the shifters, clutch paddles, everything feels nicer. Obviously, I love the buttons on the GT1, but having 7-way hats and everything, and this being half the price, can you, like, let me just put this into perspective. You can have this and the GT Neo for only slightly more than the GT1 used to cost. That is insane. That is such good value. All right, let's give this car a go here. We're at Spa, not by preference. It's just that's the last one that I used. My last LED light isn't lighting up. That's just a Simhub setting. But this is a lovely round wheel experience. I need to set my force feedback a little bit higher with this car. Oh yeah, you have to blip on the downshift. Can't forget that. Yeah, it feels so. I can't believe this is only $300, guys. It's just amazing. It's unreal. The rest of the stuff, you know, relatively unremarkable, I guess. It's difficult to review something that effectively this is all the stuff from the GT Neo, but just in a different form factor. So, as far as the driving video, first impressions and stuff, I can only echo what I've said for the GT Neo. There are a couple of important points. The buttons are extremely good and responsive. The rotaries, the thumb rotaries are nice aluminium. They're quite light, but the detent is good. They're good to use with gloves as well. You've got loads of space here, which is a nice thing, and it's something that's so important for some people. People complain about their thumbs with round wheels. This button plate is nice and big, but not in the way. If you do want to use, you can use those quite easily. Just have these mapped to looking left and right here. Yeah, while you're using the wheel, you can actually still reach these, which is nice. That's pretty good. So they're in a good position. These 7-way hats, they're a little slippy or not grippy enough in my book, in my view. I'd like them to be slightly grippier. And these, again, if you get that Daniel Newman lighting profile, you'll be able to see these animate and all that stuff. But the thumb rotaries don't click down. The front rotaries don't click down. The shifters are familiar. They seem quite accurate. Simagic has nailed the shifters since day one, though. They use the better shifter mechanism. And by better shifter mechanism, I mean the one that... So instead of the shifter pivoting on a point that's in the middle of the shifter, which a lot of brands do, they have the magnet so that it pulls away from it, which means you have a far nicer, it's like a shorter throw, but it's far more accurate. And I like that Simagic have always done it that way. The clutch paddles are relatively light, not too light though. They're good. And again, the native experience on Asetek is good. I'd like for it to be internal in the QR, and I'd like for I mean, that's an Asetek issue really, but I'd love for it to be more compatible so that you could just plug straight into it. That would be nice. Then I wouldn't need all those, you know, that huge spool of cables that's around the back. But as I'm driving right here, and you guys can even see on the footage, you can just about see a tiny little bit of cable here, but it's not getting in the way of any of the shifters or anything. So as far as this experience is concerned, this is like a native Simagic experience. And as for that native Simagic experience, I have absolutely no doubt that this works perfectly with a Simagic base. Because of the way that they do things now, you don't have to mess around with radio frequencies in the same way as you did before. So stuff, for many years now, I've not had a single disconnect with any Simagic product, and I've reviewed all the wheels. I've used them all quite intensively, never had any issues. So glad we got that sorted when I did the alpha long-term review. The rest, it's been plain sailing the rest of the time. So that effectively was a summary. What a world to be in Simagic now. I think Simagic has better offerings at the budget end, especially, than any of its competitors, including Moza. I think Simagic really nailed it. The ability to use it with third-party devices, like you can get a Fanatec QR and use this wheel. Okay, you need to USB connect it to your PC, and if you're doing 900-degree rotation, that might be an issue. It's got a magnetic connector though, so if it gets too strained, you could just disconnect that quite easily. But that, it's an option, and most people will run at 540 anyway. And at 540 degrees, you don't really have to worry too much about that cable, and there's plenty of slack on this cable as well. So if you buy the Simagic wheel base that you can afford, whether that's Alpha Mini, Alpha, or Alpha U, in my opinion, if you're in any doubt, just buy the Alpha. Don't bother with the U. It's amazing. It's incredible. It's got tons of power. You're not going to use it. The Alpha Mini, if you're slightly more budget conscious, you'll wonder why you would need anything more than an Alpha Mini. So the bases are great. Buy the one you can afford. These options weren't around when I started. And I'm just delighted that they're there now, because I wouldn't be surprised if some people, especially during sales, pick up an Alpha Mini, a Neo X, and a GT Neo for less than $1,000. Like, that is insane. Yeah, it's mad. It's beautiful. That slight bit of flex, again, just want to call it out because some people skip straight to this section. Slight bit of flex doesn't affect the driving at all. The shifter paddles, having that choice, fantastic. Like, you don't even get that with the high-end ones. And $55 for that shifter paddle. I love that people can get this. Like, if you're just drifting, so if you've got your H pattern and you never need those shifter paddles, don't buy them. It makes it $55 cheaper again. So all of a sudden you're talking about a €250 button plate. You do have to buy the rim as well. So you are talking in around the $300 if you have the whole lot. That's the pricing that I know of right now. I don't know the price of the rims. I do know that the rims are the same rim options that you get for the GT Pro button plate at the moment. And prices will vary with different resellers in that. Simagic does make the list of resellers quite easy to find on their website, and there are some in my description as well under my affiliate links. So thanks a million to Simagic, to simware.eu for providing me with these opportunities to review these products. There will most likely not be a long-term review of this, but I will be when I get the new Evo bases, the new Simagic bases when they come out in the future. I will be using these devices with it, so there will be more detailed review in there. Now, I don't think there's anything that I've omitted from this that wouldn't also be in a long-term review. The only difference is if something was to fail, something was to wear over time. We don't know that now because this is day one. So I've only got, an hour or two with this device so far. So I can't say too much about the longevity. I can't say too much about, what the future of this wheel is. But by the time that review comes around, I'll have used this a lot more and I'll have put it through its paces. So I stream every Tuesday and Thursday. You will probably see me using this wheel on those streams, despite not using a Simagic wheelbase, because I have to give props to both Asetek and Simagic for being open to other ecosystems. I think that's the reason that they are going to thrive. I think others need to catch up with that. I think that's a mentality in the USB world of PC. That's the mentality that we need. We need to accept that people are going to mix and match between companies. Right now, Simagic have the most affordable third-party round wheel on the market and the most affordable formula wheel with the Neo range. Very exciting times for Simagic. Any Simagic owners and anybody who's not a Simagic owner, you can own these wheels and get the full experience regardless. I'm Lawrence. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 o'clock. I think I already said that. 9 o'clock GMT or UK and Irish time. For now, this has been the Neo X, and I'll chat to you later.